And hello and welcome to another Xterra video where I work on my truck. Sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm not. And on today's video I'm going to be working on replacing my lower controller arms. The procedure is going to be pretty much the same for Nissan Xterra, Frontier, Titan, Pathfinder and Armada, I believe. So for all those trucks it's going to be pretty much the same. Now, yes, I have few parts that are slightly different than from a stock, but still it's going to be all the same. One thing I would recommend, well, you're still gonna have to go and get yourself a alignment, but I would recommend, if you know that your alignment was pretty good, I would recommend to mark on the frame and on the washer how they were positioned on all 4 locations. That way when you assemble everything back, it's almost gonna go pretty much to the same place where it's supposed to be. But still, it's better to get alignment afterwards. And this is actually the lower control arms that I'm gonna be in. It my slight modification to a stock lower control arms. I spent some time doing it myself. I didn't want to buy the one for $2,000, just so I bought these ones and refabricated them to move this shock mount out, because my shocks were actually interfering with the CV axle. That's a common issue with Titan swap and stock lower control arms. But anyways, now let's start to disassemble everything little by little. Right, now that the tire is out, we have so much space over here to work, which is nice. So we don't really have to remove a lot of stuff, luckily, but we have to remove this cotter pin, remove this nut. We have to disassemble the steering, so this can be so we remove this so we can move this back and forth. I would actually also remove the brakes and just set them on the side on the bucket. That way it's going to be easier for us to work. It's going to be less weight over here. At some point we have to disassemble this. For me, luckily, I just have to remove this top bolt, top nut. Then I have to remove this shock mount, and then we're going to work on the 3 bolts holding the lower control arm over here and the last bolt over here, which this might give me a lot of trouble, maybe not. And also these bolts, they might be seized, maybe not, we'll see. So first let's remove a cotter pin. Now with a 32mm socket, let's take this nut out. Alright, so now I'm actually gonna remove the steering link. In my case it's two 19mm. They both are 19mm. And I can set this on the side. So now I can move this back and forth. That's going to be easier for me to remove the CV axle as well. But I'm also going to remove the brakes and just set them on the side. Brake bolts are also 19mm. So now I can take this out and I can put it on the side. That way it's going to be less weight for me to work with this. It's going to be much easier, hopefully. So now I'm gonna remove this nut so I can swing the knuckle out, and that way I can remove the CV axle. Now in my case this is again a 32mm, but usually it's if you have a stock low upper control arm, you have to remove the nut over here and separate it. So now I can take this apart and let's see if I can remove the CV axle. And as you can see over here, hopefully you guys can see this. This is the part where it gets connect, where this interferes with the shock. So that's the whole point. That's why I'm replacing them. So the way I did it, I moved this over about a quarter, half an inch over. But let's see if we can remove this CV axle now. Alright, and this is out. Now I can put this back in place just to hold it in position. And this I'm gonna try to hold it over here in place so it doesn't interfere with my work. Alright guys, so there's actually a hole over here through, so I just put a zip tie, so it's just hanging over there and it's not in my way. So I think that's pretty good. Now I'm gonna remove this lower shock mount, nut and bolt. This is not a factory one as well. I bought this online because I didn't like the bolts that were there originally, and this one is much beefier. So let me work on removing this now. Now in my case, one side is 19 and this nut is 22, but in your case it's gonna be different. So, all right, and this is out. I like these nuts and bolts, they're much bigger and heavier duty. Now I'm actually gonna relocate the jack underneath over here so I can hold this so there's not a lot of extra weight pushing down on it. Now I'm actually gonna try to unbolt this one. I know it's not gonna come out first easy. We'll have to put a wedge over here, a metal wedge, and kind of open this up once we undo the nut on the other side. So this might get a little tricky. But for now, let's try to loosen them up. On the bolt side, it's 17mm, and the nut side is 19mm. Alright, not too bad. So now I'm actually gonna try to separate this, put a wedge here and try to hammer this bolt out. So now with this kind of chisel, I'm gonna try to put it in here and I'm gonna try to hammer it, but you gotta be careful because this is cast iron. You don't want to go crazy on it, it might break. So keep that in mind, and yeah, let's hope this works. Alright, and it's going. Nice. Alright, it's out. You gotta leave it rusty, but not too bad. I did put anti-seize. When I was doing the Titan swap, I did put anti-seize on it, so I think it helped. I'm gonna actually remove this bolt so we can take the shock out. That way we can lift this up, potentially. Now, not to damage the bolt, I'm gonna put a nut on it and we're gonna try to hammer on it a little bit. Alright, it's coming out alright. Alright, let's take this completely out. Nice. And unlike the factory bolts, these ones are exactly the same thickness in the middle, so I think that's better. So let's take the shock out. All right, nice. So now we can try to lift this up, separate this. I'm actually gonna use this nut and try to hammer this up. And it goes up no problem. And I'm not damaging this bolt because this has a groove over here, so this is not gonna get damaged. Alright, and this is pretty much out. So now I can work on trying to remove those two bolts over there, and hopefully they're not seized over there. When I was doing my Titan swap, the original bolts over there, they were seized. I had to cut them out. Now with the 21 sockets on both sides, let's see if we can take this. Let's see if we can take these bolts out. Okay. And luckily they move free, so that's good. They're not seized. Wow, I'm actually happy. So now I'm gonna do the same with the other side, and this ready to drop down. Alright, and the other side is out as well. At least the nut is out. Now I'm gonna keep them on the same size where they go, but I'm actually replacing those camber bolts because one of the issues over time, especially if you're doing off-roading or if you have a really bad roads like in my area, Over time, from all the bumps, this gets loose, the washers gets moved, and your alignment gets out of whack. So I'm actually replacing them. I'm actually waiting for the new bolts to get delivered, so hopefully they're gonna get delivered soon, and I'm gonna show you guys what I'm getting. But for now, let's just remove all of this. Okay, and luckily the bolts are not seized, so whenever I put the new ones, I'm definitely gonna be putting anti-seize. But now, carefully, let's try to take this out. Alright, and it's ready to drop out. Alright, and the lower control arm is out. Nice. And actually these ball joints over here are greasable, so I can always grease them in the future, unlike this one is not. And actually I find out that this looks all dry in there. I don't see any grease in there at all, and this is actually, can you guys hear it? Yeah, this ball joint is done. It's making a lot of noise, so yeah, that's not good. At least the bushing seems to be alright. Maybe one side is slightly ripped. Actually over there it is ripped. Yeah, but like I was saying in the previous video when I was building those, these parts I can replace them for only about $80, so that's no big of a deal. And it took me about less than an hour with the recording to disassemble everything, so in the future, in like 2 years, I can do a service and replace bolt sides. I can pull this out, I can take this out and replace it. So I think it should be alright. Now I'm gonna start putting everything back together, and that's the important part, because I gotta make sure that this aligns with the shock and it does not interfere with anything. So let's start putting everything back in place. Now to make my life easier, I actually completely removed the spindle, because there is no need for it to be in place right now. Since my brakes are disconnected, I just disconnected the ABS sensor. Now I have more room over here. I can hopefully somewhat better and easier slide this in, because these lower controllers are now way heavier. There we go. Now just gonna slide these bolts temporarily just to keep it in place, so that way I can start assembling everything, and then I'm just gonna swap the bolts out whenever I get the new ones, and hopefully soon. So I'm not gonna tie it yet, and anyways these bolts are not supposed to be torqued to spec until the car is sitting on the ground with all the weight, so that way the bushings are not under a stress, because you're not supposed to torque it right now, because then when you try to lift it up, it's gonna put a lot of pressure on the bushings over there. It's gonna rip them out prematurely, and we don't want that. But let me start putting everything back in place. Now since I'm working on this, I'm actually gonna replace these boots for the red ones, for no particular reason, just they kind of look prettier. I figured might as well. It's completely not necessary, but I figured I might as well try to do this. They were not that expensive. Some of my friends use them already, and they seems to be happy with them, so I'm gonna replace this now as well.
A few moments later.
Alright guys, and the new boot is in place, and yeah, it's a red boot, so I think that's pretty good. And actually I noticed, I was kind of complaining before that this has holes, so I sealed them up, but these ones, they also had holes, and over time not a whole lot of dirt went in there, so in the end I think it's not the end of the world. But let's continue assembling all of this together now. Now this bolt over here, I'm also gonna actually put anti-seize inside, and pretty much I'm gonna put anti-seize on all the bolts, just to be on the safe side. Now the new control arms that I bought, they actually came with the new hardware, which are actually even better. The ones I had over there original were 9 grade, and this one's a 10 grade. And also the nut is even slightly better, it's longer, and it's also a locking type nut, so that is even better. So I'm gonna use the new hardware, gonna put anti-seize on it. This is all in place. The hole is lined up, so it went all the way inside. So let's install the new hardware. As you can see, the shock, everything lines up, and over here there is much more space now, so that's better. So now I'm just gonna continue assembling everything back together. I'm gonna leave all the torque specs in the description for all the mounts and everything, and maybe I'm gonna put a screenshot over here with all the torques. But like I said, this one needs to be tied in only when the truck is staying on the ground, so there is no extra stress on the bushing. So let's torque this bolt. This is supposed to be 70 foot-pound of torque, if I'm not mistaken. I'm gonna double check, and I'm gonna put all the torque specs in the description anyways. All right, this is good. So now I'm gonna torque this bolt to spec. This one is actually supposed to be 155 foot-pound of torque, so let's see if I can accomplish that. All right, and this is done. Now I can install my steering column over here. Now I'm actually might have to flip this bolt around, so this is facing the other way. I could always cut this shorter, maybe not. I gotta make sure that this is not gonna interfere with my steering now. So I'm checking right now for interference of this bolt with the steering, and it's not gonna touch. I can flip it around, but it's not gonna touch because there is still space. This can clearly go up, no problem. Once it's this way, I don't think it's gonna interfere either. I'm gonna jack it. I'm gonna lift this side up to make sure that it's not gonna interfere, and we'll see. So now I'm gonna torque this nut to spec. In my case, this has to be torqued to 150 pound-foot of torque, but in your case over here, the nut is gonna be 58 pound-foot of torque. All right. Now also I didn't mention, you're supposed to disconnect over here a sway bar. You have to connect it, reconnect it. I don't have it. I even cut off the part that goes in here. So originally you have this, that's where the sway bar is getting connected, the link, but I don't have it, I don't need it. So now I'm gonna torque tie rods. Should be torqued to 55 foot-pound of torque, but maybe it's less, but always double check their specs. All right, torque the brakes to spec. This is supposed to be 136 foot-pound of torque. All right, so unlike the other side, as you can see, this side, the one I haven't worked yet, this is completely overlapping, and this is hidden, and this is not good. So yeah, there's like no space over here, no gap. So now I'm gonna work on this side. Well, looks like on this side, on the passenger side, bolts of the camber bolts, they feel like they got seized. They're not coming out easy. In fact, they're not coming out at all. I'm trying to hammer them out, but I don't think it's gonna work. So I'm gonna try a few more times. If everything fails, I'm gonna have to cut this all out and cut this all out. Okay, so what actually happened, these washers, somehow they got deformed and they're kind of cross-threaded there or something. So that's what stuck, but the bolt is loose now. So I'm gonna have to break this out, try to pry it out somehow, and hopefully everything's gonna come out. So yeah.
Much later.
All right, and after a little bit of fighting, this side is out as well. And once again, this This bolt joint over here is making a noise as well. It's all dry in there because you cannot really grease this. And on this side, this bushing is more ripped than the other one, but they held up for almost 3 years, so that's not too bad. I probably can even refurbish this. Maybe I'm gonna cut this all out, remove this, weld the new pieces. Maybe not. Hopefully those will last at least 3 years. I don't know why it's so hard to find a good place where mechanics are honest and they do a good job. They don't cut corners. I went to this one place where supposedly it's looks like a nice place. They bring high-end cars there all the time and stuff like that. But I had so many issues since I got there, since I did the alignment. First of all, the boots were not secured in the back. This was just loose, and by the time I got home, these clamps got crimped in there. I had to replace them. On top of that, now I'm finding that this nut is completely loose. Amazing. Wow. I don't know how people sleep at night. And right on time, the new bolts, they just came in. I just finished replacing everything. All I have to do is just put the new bolts. So this one I got from D1 Off-Road. And first of all, the bolts and the nuts, they all flange, so that's better. And unlike the round washers, they all come with a square washers, so hopefully that's gonna keep everything in place. So that's how I'm gonna start mounting now everything. Now depending on your alignment, it's probably gonna be different, but what I'm gonna do, the front ones are gonna be all the way out, but the rear ones gonna be all the way in. And then I'm gonna readjust this. This is gonna be sticking out one turn this way, but this is just for me. I still gonna take it to alignment shop, maybe, if I can find a good alignment shop. But yeah, this is what I'm gonna do now. So now that everything is assembled, everything is in place, one of the most important part is to tighten up these bolts the right way. You have to jack up this part until the truck starts to lifting up itself from a jack. Just keep an eye on it. Like this one is pretty loose already. So what's that gonna do for us? We're gonna do a preload on the bushing the right way. So that's how the truck itself, that's how the truck in its natural position anyways. So when all the weight is on the tire, on the ground, so we're gonna tighten it up now. So not when the suspension is hanging, we tighten it up, and then it's gonna put a lot of pressure on the bushing, and it's gonna rip them up prematurely. We don't want that either. So now I'm gonna tighten up these bolts to 100 pounds and gonna do for the other side as well. All right, that should be good. And as you can see, I installed my camber delete washers. So they all point in a certain way. The front is all the way out, the back is all the way in. I readjusted this. I'm gonna keep an eye on it. I may have to do some more adjustments, but I think this is pretty good. So all of these camber bolts, most of them got messed up over here. That's where the other side of the washer goes, and over here it doesn't spin, it actually gets rounded up, because over here it's like solid metal, right? But over here, because of the threads, it doesn't really align properly. So all of them were pretty not good. So now that everything is tied up, the last thing is to tighten up this nut to 100 foot-pound of torque. Now there's multiple ways to do it. You can put a tire in it, and if you have an opening, you can do it later, or you can ask a friend to sit inside the truck and push the brakes, or you can just put a screwdriver or something in a rotor, and as you spin, it's gonna lock in, and you can torque it to spec. There we go.
Moments later.
Alright guys, the lower control arms are replaced, installed, everything is tied up, everything is done, everything is fine. So all in all, it took about maybe 4 hours to replace everything, to change everything, so that's not too bad. And like I said, this is pretty much the same setup for the Frontiers, Xterras, Titan, Pathfinders, and I think Armadas. I might be wrong on the other two ones. Maybe on Armada and Pathfinder is slightly different, but I think it's pretty much almost the same anyways. So once everything is replaced and finished, just make sure you take your truck to alignment, to a good alignment shop, so they can align it properly. But other than that, it's all done. So as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you might find it helpful, and as always, until next time, everybody, bye.